I guess maybe we'll start with something that has been kind of in the news the last little while, is the changes to Wifta, like all of the minimum skills requirements and things like that. So Peter, we were talking earlier about kind of how Derby was when you started versus now, and sort of what that looks like.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I was saying how when I first started, which was like, I think around 2007, we still had minimum skills. You still had to pass minimum skills, but it wasn't as, I guess, like regulated, I guess, then. But I was also saying that the game back then was completely different than what it is now. Like, yeah.
I was actually watching, because Twitch went live with the 2011 championships, and I was like, this is so weird, like so different, because it was
like no packs.
Yeah, there was no
it's
double whistle, double.
Yeah.
And like everyone starts on their knees. What was that about? Like,
see, I missed that part.
Okay.
That was during my gap when I was in school. But I don't know so much about that, you know, the knee starts or whatever. But even before that, it was still the same before that, where it's the double whistle, and there was like no pack definition. It was just like
and you, like, it was always moving. Like everyone was like, there was none of this like stopped wall stuff, right?
So fast.
Yeah.
So I mean, fast now, but there was very little, I wouldn't say very little gameplay, but it gets very detailed in gameplay now.
Yeah. Okay. This is good to know. This is why. Okay. So minimum skills, essentially one of the big things has been the 27 and 5. They've kind of taken that out as a minimum skill requirement. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't necessarily disagree with that, as being in Derby myself for 10 years, going through body weight changes myself. I know I can play, I know I'm safe, but could I have passed the 27? That was one thing that maybe have held me back coming back after a stint off. But if you're not jamming, then the endurance isn't it's always necessary, but it isn't as necessary. As long as you're safe on the track, then I don't find the 27 and 5 a defining passing to play.
I think I'm in the same boat, because I've seen many skaters that I've played with that I know that are capable of skating and are safe on the track, but they just can't quite make, and like sometimes it's just like they're just a half a lap off or just one lap off. Some of those times too, and then you don't pass them, and then you can't play. Like even with even if you want to try out for the travel team or something like that, like that's the preventing measure for me from being part of your travel team. It kind of sucks, and I know that they're totally capable and good players too.
Right.
Absolutely. It's discouraging too for not making your 20s, like and then how many times do you come to practice and fail and not be able to play? You know what I mean? It's not good for any league to lose players, lose people that had joined because they're interested and just because of a certain skill set that could develop with playing an actual game rather than just on the track with your teammates.
Right.
So that push to see how fast the game is. A couple games and that half a lap or that lap may be easy to get.
Right.
So playing at your level, yes, but I don't think that's shouldn't be defining of a play.
Yeah. And I do tend to agree with you. Like the one thing that I keep going back onto is with a lot of our training, we've been talking about stamina and building that endurance, because I mean, you guys have seen it, right? We've won games in the second half of the second half, right? Like, because we've out stamina'd another team where they're like dying on the bench and we're like, we're good to go, you know? So not to say that the 27 and 5 is relevant or irrelevant, but like, I feel like having that like stamina is. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it should be removed from training. Like that's a goal, but it's not a defining.
Yeah, it shouldn't necessarily be whether or not you can play.
Right. Like I do think it still should be practice, and it is great cardio, and it's always something to strive for. So you get 25, 2 weeks later, you're going to get 26, then you're going to get 27. Like,
Exactly.
but it shouldn't be I have to get 27 or else.
And there's your face. Hi.
I'm here. Hello.
So we have already started recording. We were just discussing the 27 and 5, like taking that out of like the minimum skills requirement, and sort of the girls were saying how like when they started playing, the game was so much more different, and whether we feel like it's relevant or that we might continue it as a training team just because.
I like the 27 and 5. It is, I've always been, I've not always been on the side of the 27 and 5. Back when I first started Suki and Beater, I'm sure you can say, it was the 25 and 5.
Yeah.
And at that time, that was impossible for me to do. Which then they increased it to 27, and it was like, oh man, this is gonna be so hard. But then, you just get used to it. So I think that it's a good way for people to make sure that they're conditioned enough for being able to skate, a 2-minute jam, and just knowing that you can't just quit when you want to quit. You're in that jam until that jammer calls it off. So you need to be prepared for that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, that it's like a headspace thing, right? Like, because so often you get through like halfway through that 27 and 5 and you're like, I can't. But to be able to keep going and getting through that's really important. That excellent point. Excellent point.
Thank you. That was just off the top of my head.
There you go. Just pulled that right out.
That was not one of the pre-questions.
No, it wasn't. So Ninja sent me also questions right before everyone came on. So I was like, oh, this is a good question.